Can one of our board members go ahead and jump on the ELPCO Facebook page and make sure that we're not live feeding onto my personal page and that it's actually on live on ELPCO? Looks like it is. Okay. Okay. All right, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to the first 2024 meeting for East Liberty Park Community Organization. We're starting into the new year slowly because unfortunately the majority of our board members are sick. So, everyone, I'm glad that you're at home taking care of yourselves, and thank you for not coming. We're going to do a really special shout out to our board member Marshall, who is convalescing with his parents, or who is helping his parents out in Colorado. So stay safe, stay warm. Best of wishes to everyone. We have a small group on Zoom, and we're going to jump right into the agenda right now because we do have Salt Lake Fire Department in the room. So welcome, you guys. Thanks for coming.
Appreciate it. My name is Captain Stroud. We are the crew of B Platoon at Station 5. That's right here on 9th South and 10th East. We just wanted to come and deliver a quick safety message that the chief puts out on our newsletter, and then also just give you a little bit of information as far as statistics for our run volumes for December. We don't have January's obviously yet because we're in January still, but we can also give you kind of an estimate as to what we finished off with for the year, last year of 2023, for Station 5 total. So I'll give you those stats first. As far as Station 5 in the month of December, we had 61 fire calls and we had 171 medicals that we took just out of that station. For the year, it looks like we were just under 3,500 calls for the year. So fairly busy, but obviously we're able to tackle that many calls just with that one station. And citywide, let me pull up the number right here. We had just under 45,000 calls between fire and medical for the fire department in total in Salt Lake City. So quite a few. So the chief's message primarily talks about safety, and his message basically was how to make 2024 a safe and practical year for our community. And his thoughts on that were to start with being safe right in your home, to check your smoke detectors and try to check and change the batteries at least every 6 months on those. We encourage everyone to try and at least check them twice a year and change the batteries once a year at least. And we encourage that usually in the beginning of January, first week in January, and then also the first week in July. If you do that, then you know that those are working properly. You can test one in your house if it's a system-wide, and it'll check all the others, or if they're individuals, you may have to check each one separately. The other thing the chief wanted to put across about safety in the community is that the fire department does offer every other month CPR classes. And the CPR classes, they are free to the public. My phone keeps jumping crazy around there. Sorry about that. Okay, so they are free to the public, and they are held. They're about an hour long, and it's the third Wednesday of the odd months during the year. You can sign up through the webpage for the fire department, which is https://slcfire.com. And we also encourage people, if they want to take it a step further, to enroll in a CERT course. You can sign up for a CERT course online through the FEMA website. And also we have a link to that on slcgov.em, which is emergency management page of the SLC Gov page. What that is that's a 21-day course that goes into how you can effectively become a pseudo first responder if there's an emergency and the fire department is overwhelmed. That would be in like the case of an earthquake or a mass disaster, or something terrible to where there's lots of people injured, there are roads damaged, some bridges become impassable, things like that. You can become a very valuable asset to you and your neighbors by taking that CERT course and learning some of the things that you can do to be able to provide care and aid in the case that the fire department wouldn't be able to respond very quickly. And you'd be alone with you and your neighborhood members for a short time without any assistance. So we highly encourage that. And the chief just wanted to put those across as an invitation for all of the community members here in Salt Lake City to join those. And again, those classes are both free of charge. So, okay, any questions?
How old do you have to be to do the CPR?
CPR, they'll take all ages. We obviously encourage you to be at least mature enough to where you can comprehend, the process of what's going on. So I would assume, if you're maybe 12 or older would probably be appropriate. There are some very mature, like kids that are over, 8. So it would be up to you guys. But yeah, we do offer that to anybody of any age, as long as they're able to understand the material and comprehend what the purpose of what CPR is. So. Yeah, great question.
So I do have a couple of questions from
Go
the
ahead.
community.
Yeah.
And again, we apologize that a lot of our board isn't here.
No problem.
But one of the questions was about the CERT program, and we were talking amongst some of our board members about at least having our geographical representatives. So we from different neighborhoods, we have elected
Sure.
representatives, try and get involved in the CERT class. But every time we talk about it, a lot of people would like to take it maybe as a cohort. So would it make sense for us to contact the department and say, hey, we have a pretty big group that would like to do this?
Yeah, so our medical division could assist in setting that up. We don't offer a CERT course per se through the fire department, just
Right.
because instructors kind of come and go.
Right.
And to maintain that certification as an instructor in that is quite a bit of work, which, we have some, but it would take some organization. And I misspoke earlier, I said it was a 21-day course, I apologize, it's a 21-hour course.
Yeah, 20 minutes.
Sorry, it's a 1-hour course over 21 days, so.
Yeah, that's it.
Kind of both are correct, but, yeah, on that, SLC Gov, /EM/CERT, it has all the information as to what you can do to get enrolled into a CERT course. You can also just call SLC, remind me of the phone number.
7995.
7995.
Yeah.
There's a fancy way to remember. And so you can get a hold of the medical division that way and ask them if you have a group, and you could give them numbers and try and organize it into more of a collective, almost like a course, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and they can organize that. We don't do it that often, but if you have enough interest and you have people that are willing to do it, then we're always willing to provide what the community would like to have. So.
Good, thanks. So at ELPCO, we're lucky to have really great relationships with our first responders. And another thing that came up is that we have been advocating a lot for the fire department in the budget. And I know that you guys don't do budget issues, right? But Chief Lee has been really good and really patient.
Fantastic.
So he's been fantastic. But we do recognize, especially because part of our area is Liberty Park. And I do street level community emergency stuff sometimes, right? So I end up working with the chat team a lot.
Fantastic. Yeah.
So I don't know if you're aware of this, but they're trying to budget in, which did finally get passed, some career level paramedics, rather than having all of those units be sending a full fire.
Correct.
And, trucks, stuff like that. So of course, we're really advocating for that.
Absolutely.
But it's sometimes difficult for us to get the information that I just have by chance, because of my personal experience,
Mhm.
to the city council, elected officials, people who work on the budget, because they have, they have a million hours that they spend of their personal time
Sure.
doing this kind of stuff. So in a nutshell, if we were going to help as a community, our elected officials better understand fire needs, and have them understand what we see on the streets of ELPCO and the Liberty Park.
Sure.
What would be a great way to get that information to them?
To get it, let me make sure I understand your question. You're talking about the citizens
Mhm.
and their concerns to express that to the fire department administration?
And then get it packaged in a way so that it was readable or accessible
And
to the city
presentable.
council members who controlled the budget. who
Okay,
basically.
first off, let me start by answering, part of that question. We just had our state of the department address by Chief Lee to the department members, so we're very familiar with what is going on with the new budget. And the budget, we were able to expand the community health access team, so the chat team, to where we have 2 new units, both on the west side, so that the east side can stay on the east side,
Right.
which is fantastic. So that was a big win for the fire department to get more social workers and hired, and also the associated BLS units, they call it MRT units,
Right.
with them. What we were not approved for is the non-sworn paramedics to ride on that. And it's not that we weren't approved, it just wasn't approved in the budget for those extra bodies.
Yeah.
So,
Right, so
correct,
like.
they're still working on it, but for
in
2024.
Year, it's like in the works and it's happening. This is what we're sort of bringing to the table here, is that East Liberty Park is clear that you need to hear from the citizens on how helpful chat is, and again.
Yeah, and the best way that I can see, as the public being able to express their concerns is, number one, obviously attend the community council meetings and voice their opinions and things like that. People are always welcome to stop by the fire department to bring, letters or notes. If they want to email administrative staff, they're welcome to do so as well, with their desires or their support of those things. And if they come into the fire stations themselves, we can chat and we can have those conversations and then relay that up the chain so that our administration is aware that people are actually coming into the fire stations to discuss their desires with us. Obviously, those are kind of things that are a little more obvious. The things that are a little less obvious have to do more with contacting the government officials and, emails and, letting them know their concerns so that the fire department's desires are known to be in line with the citizens' desires.
Right.
And then that also helps kind of bolster that support and that show of force, I guess, to the mayor.
Yeah, excellent.
And to let them know that it needs to happen maybe quicker than we would like. Because we definitely desire to get those things rolling, as does the community. The bottom line always is that it has to be.
It costs money.
Yeah, it's
Right.
money, exactly.
Right, so that's a great answer, and I think just to be clear is what I hear you saying is that like somebody could write an email to your administration chief lead or
Absolutely.
whoever, and also CC their community council and the mayor's office at the same time.
Yeah, and the
So that
SLC Fire org website.
Right.
If you go on there, it has a letter to the administration and it has links that you can email any of the assistant chiefs, deputy chief, and chief lead himself as well. So,
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you.
thank you so much. We're still active and on duty, as you can tell by my radio. So we're gonna go ahead and let you guys have your meeting, and we appreciate you letting us be here.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so, oops, we have one person. So we don't have anybody asking questions from the Zoom, and I just kind of assumed nobody answered that.
Was there any questions?
No, we're good. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So, so we are gonna move on to Detective Follows, and I'm gonna let you sort of start the conversation, Detective Follows, as Jeanette, our secretary, is in the room. We set up the shared screen.
Perfect. Well, it's great to be here with y'all tonight. For those that don't know me, I'm Detective Sam Fellows. I'm your community liaison detective for District 5. So we're going to be going over a couple of things. So before we get into like stats or anything else, I want to give a quick reminder about the SLC mobile app. So you may be familiar with the SLC mobile app. If you're not, the app is an app you can download on your phone from either store, and you can utilize it to report concerns regarding homelessness, is what a lot of people use it for. But you can also utilize it for a lot of different things. If you need to replace a garbage can, if there is a crosswalk light that's out, or a stop sign that's downed in your neighborhood and needs to be corrected, you can utilize it for like all these different things. So, but we are having some confusion with the SLC mobile app and what is appropriate to report on there. So what I'm going to go over is what's not what you don't want to report on the SLC mobile app, and that is essentially anything that would be like a crime. So if you see maybe some what you suspect to be maybe a drug deal going down in Liberty Park or something like that, you're not going to want to report that on the SLC mobile app. You're going to want to report that to the 799-3000, to the non-emergency number. Or if you're seeing, in your neighborhood, if you've got a house that's super problematic and you're seeing cars parked out front and you want to give us a tip, like those are things that you don't want to report on the mobile app. So the mobile app is specifically for non-criminal issues, essentially, for the most part. You can report like speeding on there, but you're not reporting a violator. What you're doing is you're asking for motors to come out to your area through that app. So things like that. So that's what the app is for. It's a really versatile app. I suggest everybody download it and utilize it when you can. Again, most people utilize it to report a concern regarding homelessness. So if you're seeing a camp in an alleyway or Liberty Park, you're welcome to report that, but we are very well aware of it, and we have regular teams that go out there on a regular weekly basis to deal with that. But you can report it. But essentially, it just kind of lets us know where there are problems in the city, but again, non-criminal issues. So just want
So
to
can I break in real quick, just before we get into the other stuff on the Salt Lake mobile app? So Detective Pauls and I have been talking about this a lot. I recently attended the Sugar House Community Council meeting, and there were some people who were confused, as Detective Pauls is saying, about when to use the app and when not. And if you actually download and look in the app, you can see that it's really about things that aren't happening or aren't in process right now. For example, like if you need to get graffiti off a wall, or if there's a huge pothole. But as far as the Salt Lake Police Department goes, it's about more, suspicious things or things that you can, but if there's a crime happening, and this is a thing that we're having a hard time expressing to, especially some of the older people in ELPCO that don't use apps a lot, is that they need to phone directly either the 911 if it's an emergency, or the 799 number if they need to make a report. So if there's a crime happening, or if it's a crime they need to report, like somebody has broken into their house, we can't use the app for that. ELPCO is going to add this to our next board meeting, to sort of discuss how we can get this information out better through our newsletter and our social media and things like this. So go ahead, Detective Paulos.
Yeah, thank you, Christina. Yeah, so just want to make that distinction. I'll be kind of going over this over the next few months, just to kind of remind people. So moving on to what we're all looking at right now on the screen. It's up there, yeah? You can see it up there as well?
Yeah.
So recently, the Salt Lake City Police Department, for those that get online and look up the crime stats for your neighborhood or for your just the city in general, or however you do it, we've recently changed our website on how we utilize the crime dashboard. So it used to be that an outside agency was managing the website for us and compiling all the data and getting all that stuff together and then putting it on the website for us. It was an outside contract that did that. They decided to bring everything in-house to our own people in the Salt Lake City Police Department and really revamp the dashboard and how to look at the different crime types and stuff like that. And so you might have heard me in the past say, like, hey, I report on type 1 and type 2 crimes. And those are everything from, all these 27 different crime types. So what we're looking at right now is going to be the new version that comes out, and what I'll utilize to report to my neighborhoods, to the different community councils, on what crime is going on. So currently, and this is going to be released in phases. So this new crime dashboard will be available to the public sometime in probably early to mid-February. So it should be fairly soon, hopefully. And as they roll it out, they're going to roll out more and more options as we go, but they want to get it out to the public because people do utilize this quite a bit. So for now, what we're going to be reporting on are violent crimes and property crimes. And you can kind of see up there the different categories. You've got like criminal homicide, rape, robberies, aggravated assaults, and then you've got burglaries, larcenies, and motor vehicle thefts. So eventually they're going to expand those crime types to include many more. But right now, just so we can roll it out, those are the most important ones that we report on between the property and the violent crimes. So what I like to do, and the good thing about this new system, and this is what you're looking at right now is what you'll see online when it is released. And essentially what you can do is, as you can see, you can choose like citywide, you can choose it by council district, you can choose it by police division, and you can choose it by your community council, which is most likely the one you'll be the most interested in. Obviously for our meeting, I've chosen East Liberty Park or ELPCO, and it gives us these totals that we can kind of see here on the screen. So when we're looking at the month, we had the biggest thing we saw was like thefts. 11, we had 11 in the month of December. And this is always going to be on the month lag so that we have the full crime stats for the month. So looking at December, we had 15 total property crimes, 4 total violent crimes. When you go across, you can see the year to date, which would be January 1st to December 31st, 2023. And the thing I like to look for the most is the change percentage. So outside of aggravated assault family related, most of the crimes are down significantly, which is great to see. And we can kind of see that in the graphs too. So overall, we're down 39.6% in the ELPCO neighborhood for all crimes. When you look at the left graph there, you see the number 19. That's for December 2023. So December 2023, we had 19 total crimes reported under those categories. And so you can kind of see the past few years compared for December. And what we're seeing, which is a good thing, is we're seeing this trend from 2020, sometimes 2019 to current, where we're starting to see a steady decline in crimes. So our December for 2023 was a little bit busier than December 2022 and 2021. But if we go to the overall crimes on the right-hand side of the year-to-date comparison, we can see that our crimes went from 526 total crimes reported in the whole year in the ELPCO neighborhood to 402 to 329 and then to 253 in 2023. So we're seeing a nice steady decline, which is kind of what we're seeing across the city right now, which is great. That's what we want to see. On that note, though, I do always talk about like I want to make sure that we do get accurate statistics for our neighborhood. And so I always encourage people, even if it's just like a small theft, like you wake up in the morning and something's missing from your front yard, or your car was rummaged through, but you don't really have any broken glass, you don't really have anything missing. I would still encourage you to report those things so that they are kind of like that pin on the map. Because what that does is it gives me the opportunity as your community liaison to kind of direct resources to the neighborhood. So for instance, let's say we're having a lot of bike thefts. If I can look up bike thefts in the neighborhood and I can see that those are rising significantly, I can justify going to our property crimes unit and saying, hey, can we do a bait bike operation in ELPCO where we can make some arrests for people trying to steal bikes, and we can do things like that. But if we don't have the numbers to back it up, it's hard for me to be able to ask for those things, when there's other places that have bigger numbers. So it's not always based on numbers, but generally it helps me see the overall picture a little bit more accurately. So I always preach, like, if you can take a second to report the crime. I know like Nextdoor is really big, and I'm glad that everybody likes to let their neighbor know what's going on Nextdoor, on Facebook, but we don't monitor that, and it doesn't really help the police department any when we're trying to direct our resources and things like that throughout the city. So
Can I jump in on this real quick too, just before we get
Absolutely.
too further in deep? Okay, so Detective Follows and I have been talking a lot about reporting in ELPCO. And it's my, as ELPCO chair, I follow what's it called? Nextdoor. I can't stand Nextdoor, but I have to follow it just to make sure that we're capturing what our neighbors are seeing that they might be not telling us. So something that I noticed and that I brought to our peers in the rest of D5, and that we've been discussing among the chairs of, District 5 community councils, meaning Ballpark, Liberty Wells, and Central Ninth, that there's a difference in reporting that we definitely see. So, so different community councils talk to their constituents about how they should be reporting crime. Now, I'm not dissing on this in any way, because I do believe if I live in a high crime area, and I know that policing is done by the numbers, and that we're trying to, you know, trying to draw attention to the criminal activity in my neighborhood. You do that by encouraging people to utilize the mobile app and report crimes as much as possible, right? But we do see in our neighborhood a lack of folks who would rather call ELPCO or me or one of us for the very same type of crimes that are happening in those areas, rather than getting the police involved. And I'll use an example that Detective Gonzalez and I looked at specifically, and then I actually grandmaed some information on, and that is, you know, pride flags being stolen. And I think most of us will agree that sometimes that constitutes something that could be considered a hate crime. And we saw a lot of this happening in Central 9. But as we know here, you know, we have in ELPCO, we have pride flags stolen in the droves all the time. It's just something we've kind of become used to. And I don't ask people to report that every time. So there is the biases built into these systems and these reporting systems that honestly we can't compensate for. And I'm not sure we really want to compensate for. You know, just kind of the petty theft off of our porches and things like that. I really just am not making a statement one way or the other. But what we have to be clear about is that if it's not reported, it doesn't become part of the stats. So, you know, something that we need to think about again as a community, and how aggressively we want to look at crime. Go ahead. Thank you for letting me cut in, Detective Follows.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And that's also important why I bring up the SLC mobile app, and why I don't want you to report any kind of crimes on there, because the SLC mobile app does not talk to the police department. It's not counted as a stat for the neighborhood. What it does is, like, for instance, if you report a concern regarding homelessness, it routes to our HEART team, who goes out and engages that individual who's experiencing homelessness, tries to get them resources. And if they, you know, refuse or they don't want to move on, then they get the camp moved out of the area. So, but by way of the police department side of it, we don't get a statistic from that, you know, or I know about it because that's my job and I do that every day. You know, that's the normal thing I do. But your average patrol officer doesn't get a statistic that's like, oh, hey, this area had 6 SLC mobile app reports for issues, you know, so that's why it's important. Another good resource that we offer to kind of make things a little bit easier for y'all is, if it is something simple, a minor crime, I completely understand that, you know, you don't want to like call for an officer, wait around for an hour or two. Like, you can always just log on to our website. And this is where I'm trying not to confuse people, but the website is slcpd.com, and you can file a police report online on our website, not on the mobile app, on the website online. You can file a police report that will count as a crime stat for the neighborhood, that will help me kind of see the full picture of what's going on, and help me get some resources and things like that. So, and I want to caveat this with saying, if you come to me and you're like, hey, we're having issues in this area, I'm not just going to dismiss you if I look it up and I don't see, you know, like a major problem through stats. Like, I'm not trying to say that by any means. If you come to me as your community liaison and you're like, hey, I'm seeing all these issues, I'm seeing all these problems, we're having a lot of speeders or something like that, some things you can't really call in to patrol to get a stat for, like a speeder in a neighborhood. Like, it's not really going to do you a ton of good to call into patrol for that, right? But what you can utilize is our Speed Watch program to report speeders in your neighborhood. And the Speed Watch directs our motors to come do directed enforcement in your neighborhood on a stop sign or for speeders or whatever it might be. So I completely, like, when I say we're stat driven, what I mean is for things where we're seeing a lot of crime where we can do more operations. But if you come to me and you're saying, hey, I have an issue and I need some help, I'm certainly not going to be like, well, there's no stats, sorry, I'm not going to help you. Like, so that's not what I'm trying to say by any means. But
I also want to say something very clearly on that, is that we want the police department to be stat driven, Detective Follows, because then we can identify real problem areas that need attention diverted to them, like what has happened with the new units, with Nate Meinzer's units and stuff like that. So I just want to clarify if I said anything that made it appear that the stats are an ugly process, because we really appreciate all this, the crime dashboard and things like that. And you're always so helpful to us for anything we call in on. So
Yeah, I
if I
appreciate.
misspoke.
No, not at all. I just want to clarify though.
Okay.
Not at all. Yeah, no, not at all. So, um, but anyway, so yeah, this is going to be the new crime dashboard. This is kind of how we're going to track things. Again, it'll be expanded into more crime types as they roll out different versions of it, so you can kind of get that bigger picture of what's going on. Does anybody have any questions for me about the SLC mobile app, or about the crime dashboard, or about anything in general?
We have a question from the room. This is, go ahead.
Yeah, so looking at the crime dashboard, I think I can see that in 2022, like I think the grand total was 329, and then 2023 it was 253. Like, so indicating a reduction in crime activities in ELPCO. So I want to know, like, do you by any chance know like some factors that accounted to the reduction in crime activities in the neighborhood?
So I just didn't hear the last part. What was the last part?
I said, do you by any chance know some of the reasons why crime activities reduced in the neighborhood? Maybe certain things that you guys were doing right, or like maybe more awareness or something like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's definitely a combination of a lot of things. I think one thing, kind of like what you're saying. So we have started doing the stratified policing model in the police department, and that was implemented. I believe it was like late 2022, early 2023. So the stratified policing model kind of gets officers into neighborhoods a lot more through like our hotspot dispatched hotspot locations and things like that. So our goal was to kind of get the violent crime down first, is the most important goal of the city, right? And so I think it's a combination of definitely more awareness, the different the stratified policing model coming on board, and things like that, is why we're seeing the decline in crime, or is what we hope, right? There's really no like 100% way to tell like why crime is declining, but we think it's because we've done the stratified policing model. We've been utilizing that for about a year now, and it really has helped reduce violent crime, in addition to like property crimes, but violent crime throughout the whole city. And so just that, coupled with, like you said, more awareness and things like that, I think is how the crime numbers have gone down.
We have another question about, well, we've had a couple of questions when I've talked to people about this, and one of the things we want to stress is that that this is a change from weekly reporting to monthly reporting. And a big reason why this is important for a place like ELPCO is because it takes care of some of the biases that are just blips, that even itself out really quickly. But if we, so we can just really look at the numbers, because I mean, a change of 0 to 1 is quite a big percentage in aggravated assault in ELPCO. But it's really just one case. So, things that we're able to look at really clearly will be available to all of our constituents as well as us to look at in the future. So, can you unshare, your thing? And I want to make sure that we have, does anybody online have any questions about what we're presenting today? Okay, so a couple of things that I think that Detective and Follows and I agreed that we wanted to share with you too, is that we were invited, the chairs of community councils, and there was a few of us who were invited by the chief of police to the public safety building to be trained on this and to help us understand it and how to utilize it in our community. which we really are thankful to Chief Brown and everyone else at the police department for helping us learn and letting us provide feedback. The stats department and the people who are working on these things are working really hard to make sure that the information gets out to our community. And one thing we did talk about that was kind of off topic was as far as reporting goes, we have noticed a change that they're only able to see what's happening as far as calls being dispatched out every 24 to 48 hours. And we get a lot of calls and comments from our constituents talking to us about this being a problem for people. Not because they want to show up and rubberneck, although there probably is some of that, let's be honest. But mostly just because people are wondering, if the police have already been called, do they need to call the police? There's an emergency, there's an accident right there that they might not have capacity to handle, critically injured folks are far on their way. These kind of things are really helpful to us. And we just want to, again, thank you, Detective Follis, for listening to us as we walk through some of these statistics and reporting issues to try and change not only, what we see on our streets and provide safety on our streets, but also to help just dialogue about the processes behind the scenes. So thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, well, if there is no one else, then we will let you go, Detective Follis, and we'll jump into something else. In the room, we have Daffodil. Daffodil is an intern from the Salt Lake City Council, and she is here. Councilman Mono could not be with us, but we have taken several questions from the community that people were hoping to ask Councilman Mono tonight. So we're just going to open it up to anybody in the room who might have a question that she can record and take back to Councilman Mono for us. I'll take questions from the room if anybody has any first.
I'm just wondering about the sale of Roland Hall. And I heard that it was an anonymous buyer. So I'm just curious if that's on his radar.
The anonymous part or just the sale?
Well, just, that's a huge, big chunk of property. And it'd be kind of nice if he was aware of what the future thoughts were on that property. There's also a big chunk of property across the street that's their parking lot that actually has been used by a lot of patrons of the 9th and 9th because the school has been nice enough to say, well, no parking during Monday through Friday during these hours, but then on the weekends and on the evenings, people can park there. So I kind of wonder what's happening with the parking lot. Maybe we should think about keeping the parking lot since it offers more access to the 9th and 9th corner. Whereas we just pretty much have street parking and a few little off in the back parking. So that's my question.
Okay.
I have a question for you.
No,
Hi, I'm Christina. I'm the
Hi,
chair of East Liberty Park. Are you a resident or a business?
Claire. No, I'm
Oh,
a
you're
resident.
Claire. Oh, yes.
I live on Lincoln Street, right
Yeah.
across from Roland Hall.
Oh, that's great. I thank you for your email. So, so this did come up and, it has come up a lot because we are, things are critical in 9th and 9th for us because Roland Hall is for certain moving out,
Mhm.
which, like you say, leaves this huge land use issue. That hasn't landed in ELPCO's lap yet. We're not in that place yet.
Yeah.
But, you will be the first to know now that I know that you're following these issues closely.
Yeah.
But there has been a lot of talk about parking because the Tower Theater is always also coming back online.
Mhm.
So from both the residents in the area and the businesses in the area, I'm meeting a lot with a lot of different people and a lot of different stakeholders to try and understand the future of parking in 9th and 9th, right? So I'm going to ask you to expand on this question to Councilman Vermano, that, we realize that residents don't get parking, that, this is sort of the way of the affordable housing incentives. But when you have residents bumping up right against business districts who are, very upset about losing their parking, how we're gonna start talking to folks about this. And that is compounded by both the Roland Hall, the Tower Theater, and smaller side streets, like, you probably wanna write this down, Lake Street, losing their parking right there.
Okay.
So, we sort of have this tangled mess of things that are happening all at once. And right now, our hands are tied across the board. So our residents are coming to us in droves, but we have nothing to tell them.
So you want answers to give to them?
Yeah, we want to be able to help them understand their future, both as residents of 9th and 9th and businesses of 9th and 9th, meaning the near 9th and 9th area. So what we consider the residential / business district.
Okay.
So this is the number one question I get asked every single day. So thank you for eloquently bringing that
Well,
up.
I just saw that parking lot and I know it's used a lot and I think I'd hate to see that to go. Cause,
Yeah,
I mean, people come and they have coffee at Public, they go shopping and we want that. We need that. We need that people coming into our community, but we don't wanna make it so hard. They have to go down the street a quarter of a mile in order to come and have coffee at the garden.
mhm,
Doesn't seem right.
excellent. One thing that we have started is that I've been working on a project called 9 Line Up, in which we are promoting the many different ways to utilize the 9 Line Trail to get to 9th and 9th, alternative modes of travel. But as any business in the area will tell you, that they rely on people driving there in order to stay in business. So, I am in the middle of the perpetual parking struggle. I agree with you. As a resident of Lincoln, we hear from residents of Lincoln all the time.
And there's one small little point I wanna make is that 9th and 9th is not people coming to a specific spot. They might wanna come to the garden for coffee, but they probably walk across the street and shop someplace. So it's not just one business that they come to, it's that whole community corner that they come to. So, and that hits a lot of small businesses. I mean, I think encouraging them is a good thing.
That's excellent. Yeah, thank you so much for your comments. Does anybody else online have any comments or questions that they would like to pass on to Councilman Mono? David in the room has a question.
I do. Would you ask him if he could find out why? So I think in November they completed road construction in the 9th and 9th area, primarily between 9th East and maybe Lincoln Street. I don't know. And it's really nice and smooth now, but there are no traffic lanes painted on the road, and there's no pedestrian crossway on the road. And those things, in conjunction with the small little streetlights that are out, just drive by there tonight when you leave this meeting and see what it looks like. Hope you don't hit anybody.
Yeah.
But if you could have him look to see why they can't, it's gonna be 50 degrees next week. And it'd be nice if they could paint some lines
Yeah, but
for
we don't-
pedestrians and traffic.
Yeah, driving there is scary. I agree.
It is, yeah, and this is another thing, you're touching on another thing that people are, especially the businesses right there, have brought to our attention. But this is definitely something we're working on with the 900 South Street Crew. They have just been in kind of a weather hold. And the businesses along there, there's sort of a push and shove with the businesses. Some people want them to come back and complete, and some people wanted a break from it. So
Well, whatever
so
the
we can
excuse
talk
is, it
to
needs to
them,
be fixed.
900 East folks. And for any constituents in the room, again, I urge you to, email again, 900 South Reconstruction. Email those folks, Jordan and Bennett, they'll happy to hear from you. But the more residents and concerned citizens that do email them and let them know it's a problem, then, it's a numbers game. So like, a lot of people don't want them to do this and a lot of people do,
I'll do a shout out to that app that we were just talking about.
that's it.
While he was talking about what not to,
Mhm.
how not to use the app,
Mhm.
I actually got on it and actually and made a request
Mhm.
that they fix the streetlights and also paint the road. So I'm doubling down tonight,
So thank you,
Councilman knows
David.
about it and the
Yeah.
people on the street app know about it.
Great. So now Councilman Mono knows it. We'll, I'll get on my email and contact my good friends on 900 South Reconstruction and let them know that we've heard from a lot of people that this is a problem and, this is good. But Councilman Mono should understand these issues as well, I think. It's good. So really, Daffodil, thank you for coming. I mean, it's so great when he's not able to come to have somebody in
Yeah.
his place. It's fantastic. So thank your bosses for us.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. So hopefully you'll stay through. Okay, we're gonna move on. Online, we have Josh, from the mayor's office. He is our liaison. Welcome, Josh. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Great, everyone. My name is Josh Boyle. I'm the community liaison in the mayor's office for District 5 and for District 1. I'm just going to drop a few links in the chat that those online can see, and I'm just going to talk through them. So the SLC mobile app, everyone's mentioned, please report issues on there. You can also do that online if you're not on a phone. You can go to myslc.gov and report issues there directly to the city, directed to city departments. So myslc.gov is the address for that. And then I also provided the link on the mayor's office website for the community outreach team, which I'm a part of. We have a team of liaisons that are assigned geographically throughout the city to help respond to issues and communicate with departments and obviously work with community councils. We do community office hours every other month in various locations. So I will be on February 12th out at the newer coffee shop on 9th South, Low Key Coffee, which many of you have probably seen or are familiar with. So I'll be out there on February 12th in the morning. So that schedule is online, and we'll be promoting that through our SLC social media as well. So I just want to put that out there. The slc.gov/feedback is the website you'd go to for current surveys that the city throughout the city departments are running. And I'll also draw attention to the Green Loop, which is the proposal for a park looping through around downtown, adding more green space to our downtown that the mayor has been a huge proponent of, and which we're excited to move forward with and advance more this year. So there is currently more opportunity for feedback on the current design for Green Loop. So I've linked to the story map, which is just sort of the project page, and you can click on taking the survey and look at the current preliminary designs and provide your feedback on them. So either click on that link or just search SLC Green Loop, and you should be able to find that through city website. And then also the other survey that I put on there that is also on the feedback page is called the Salt Lake Clear survey. So basically Salt Lake City, the greater metro area, received funding from the Inflation Reduction Act, the federally passed law, received $1 million for implementing climate change or climate impact reduction strategies. And so the survey is just to get people's input on how the city should best use these federal funds to help address the impacts of climate change in our city. So that survey is currently open through next month. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that as well. slc.gov/feedback, so we can go for that. And then lastly, I'll just share that the mayor will be giving her State of the City address next week on Tuesday, January 30th, and that will be at 7 p.m. And it'll be live streamed on Salt Lake City Mayor's Facebook page, as well as SLC TV, which is the YouTube channel for the city. And so that will be on Tuesday at 7 p.m. And then the speech, all its text and highlights of it will be on the mayor's office website later that week. So I encourage people to tune into that as well. So that's all I have as far as updates right now. I'm happy to take any questions.
Does anybody in the room have any questions? And I don't see any online. Josh, thank you so much for coming and for answering so many questions this, this month. It's been kind of a slow start to 2024. Some of us were, I was a little caught off guard for how fast we were going to hit the ground running. So Josh has been really helpful in making some connections for ELPCO so that we can get in touch with some of the departments that we need to speak with. So we really appreciate you for being here. And I'm going to let you go early. It's going to be a fast meeting. So thank you, Josh. Have a good night.
Thank you as well. Thank you.
Bye. All right, so up next, we have Ronnie Pacetto. Ronnie, I had the pleasure of meeting Ronnie in the Liberty Park, Rotary Park Playground. She is in charge, which is planner from Public Lands, who's in charge of using that GO bond as fantastically as possible. And she's put a lot of great effort into helping our community get involved in redesigning this. So welcome. Did I miss anything about you, Ronnie? Do you want to tell anybody anything else about you before you start?
I think you nailed it.
Okay, great.
All right. So first of all, you guys can see me and hear me. I think you all can. And then second, can you all see my screen? Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
you can see it. Mm-hmm.
All right. So as Christina was saying, my name is Ronnie Pacetto. I am a public lands planner for Salt Lake City, and I have the pleasure of overseeing the reimagining of many public land spaces and parks. But this evening, tonight, I'm here to talk about Liberty Park's Rotary Play Park. So in November of 2022, Salt Lake City voters and Salt Lake City Council approved an $85 million bond to improve public land parks, trails, and open spaces. The play park was selected to receive $2 billion from the bond to reimagine it. As a quick background, the existing playground was established back in 2002 with the help of various donors and the Salt Lake City Rotary Club, hence its name. They modified the playground to become ADA accessible by its standards at its time and reflect the 2002 Olympics here in Utah. Our goal is for this new playground to be accessible for all abilities. And so we're constantly working on and making sure that we're including a variety of populations. So community engagement is such a really big, complex, yet it's super important. So I want to break it down and identify the various components that made up this past community engagement effort. The engagement phase for this project was from June 14th to September 12th of 2023. So things really warmed up during this period. Overall, we have gotten 9,080 total impressions, engagements, surveys, and conversation during this engagement period. The first layer of this engagement is preliminary exploration. So this is characterized by examining the current state of the physical space and getting insight on how the community feels about it. I started off the project with a site visit and analyzed the site on my own. I took notes and pictures and etc. I got a preliminary view of the community's thoughts through Google reviews and observation. And after that, I brought some members of the neighborhood councils, including yours, and stakeholders, and walked through the space with them to listen to their ideas, their thoughts, their concerns. I reached out via social media. We installed 20 yard signs throughout Liberty Park. We attended 9 events citywide and engaged more than 300 people this summer. We also interviewed more than 75 people this summer at the playground all summer long. From June 14th to September 12th, we opened up multiple ways that the public, public lands engage with the public. So the first way was through the online survey. A total of 449 surveys were submitted, and I'll talk momentarily about those findings. Let's see. The second way was through focus groups. Since children are the most prevalent users of this space, it was important to make room for them to give their ideas about how to reimagine the space. So one big way that we did this was by having 2 focus group sessions at the Salt Lake Arts Academy this past June. There were a total of 35 students from the 4th to 6th grade that participated in the focus group. In these focus groups, they were able to select their preference with the visual board that I will talk about momentarily. They were able to build a replica of their ideal playground, make a wish list, draw or collage their ideal playground. We also went with them to the play park, and they were able to point out and give ideas on what changes they would like to see in the space. So this is the preference board that I was talking about. We brought this preference board to all engagement events to make it easier for children and adults to provide feedback and vote on their preference for the desired equipment. To orient you, we summed up all of these preferences. The red oval is the most voted on feature, the blue is the second preferred feature, and the green is the third most preferred feature. This is part 2 of that preference board. The key takeaway from the preference board is that people wanted climbing features with a natural appearance. They wanted a variation of swing types, zip lines, and giant slides. Something unique that adults wanted more was musical and sensory features, which I thought was really interesting. And here are the common designs noted from participants. They are the desire for unique design. The design should offer interactive and explorative features. It should have inspiration, imagination through play, a natural open look, and improved play options for toddlers and small children. We have the report out, so if you want to learn more about the engagement, please read the report. You can find it on the Public Lands Project website or use the QR code at the end of this presentation. And then these are the most 10 requested features that have emerged from all forms of engagement. For the sake of time, I'm not going to read them off to you. Again, we have the report out. So if you want to learn more about it and look at the data and questions we've asked, feel free to do so. This is just a sample question of the type of questions we've asked and the responses that echoes basically what I've already said in the analysis summary section of this presentation. And then here is the tentative timeline for this subject space. So please note that this timeline is subject to change because we are early in this process. We're aiming to start construction in 2025 due to the strict timeline that this project and the bond has. We brought on the designer for this project, which is really great news. And so we have some really cool ideas for part 2 of this project, specifically on engaging with kids and adults that have accommodations. If you would like to read the report, this is the QR code that I was talking to you about through the presentation. If you have questions regarding the unsheltered population at the site, you're more than welcome to refer to the link on the screen, as well as the app that we've been talking about all night. Thank you all so much for your time, and if you have any questions, I welcome them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronnie. Let me check and make sure if we have any folks that have questions. Anyone in the room have any questions? Do you want to drop your screen share just so that I can look and see if there's anyone else? Okay, no questions from the Zoom. We do have one question from Alan. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question. I mean, the timetable seems pretty relaxed to me. Or is that because we're generally not delighted, but happy enough with what's there now that we're not worried about kids running out of things to do between now and whenever this gets built?
That's a really great question. Usually for a lot of things involving development, it takes a really long time. So like there will be a period where like I'm engaging and I'm really active, and then a period where I'm silent. But when I'm silent, it's because I'm doing all of the necessary background work of like of doing like reviews with other departments or contract work and all of that kind of stuff. This project is probably one of the more immediate projects out of the bond, because in the first tranche, when they issued the bond funding, 100% was designated to this park. So this is a priority A, basically. So this is about as fast as I can go.
So we're focusing on getting this absolutely right.
Yeah.
Rather than getting it done quickly.
Right.
It seems like a long time for a playground. I was one of the volunteer builders for the Highland Park, Pittsburgh super playground that was done in the 1990s. And they had 200 volunteers helping build this thing out of wood and a designer, but that came together in 6 months. So that's sort of my reference point on this. And that was the biggest playground in Pittsburgh at the time.
Yeah. I also have placed a really high priority on putting people in the forefront of the design work on this. And so that also takes quite a bit of time to give feedback, create space for them, especially a whole diverse set of people, including people with accommodations. And that's what this park is designed for, and should be designed for in the future.
Sure.
Alan, that's a great question, but it's something that I just learned recently from some of our planners in the city. Somebody that I really like and trust, was telling me that they lived somewhere else and then became a planner for Salt Lake City, and they were amazed at how long of time Salt Lake City dedicates to the public process and engaging the public compared to other places they've worked.
For a playground, it seems like a long time. A lot of the participants, their kids are going to be in a different age group by the time this gets done.
Yeah. And so to this, Alan is a member of our board, Ronnie. So to Alan's point, are other parks that have more need, than our park? It's a pretty fantastic playground as is, right? Do they also have to go through this long, extended public feedback process?
Yes, all of them have a feedback process. So for instance, some of the parks that I'm working on, Toffer Park, Richmond Park, Warm Springs Park, North Gateway Park, they all are undergoing this process of engagement and bringing on a design team to make designs, send out 3 concept designs for the community to vote on one last time. And then, from that result, moving forward with that final design, and undergoing design review and construction after that. So all of them have a very steady, clear, transparent process to make sure that we're not missing anything, and that we're proud of the product. I don't know when the next time we're going to come across a big set of funding like this. So we want to make sure that we're doing it right. So.
That's great. That's a good question. Yeah, it's good to know what y'all do. Okay, so any last calls for Ronnie before we let her go? It looks like we really appreciate you being here, Ronnie. Thank you so much for coming, and let us know what the next steps are, what you need for us. So have a good night. Okay, we are running quickly and ahead of time, and I was kind of planning for this to happen, mostly just because there's a lot coming up around ELPCO business that we need to dive into, but we are ahead of schedule. So I'm just gonna take a moment to look at our timing, and I'm going to take a second to go ahead and introduce all of our board members and to make a call again for some of the things that we are hoping to see in our community. First of all, of course, we are East Liberty Park Community Organization, ELPCO for short. Our neighborhood is actually East Liberty Park, or the East Liberty Park neighborhoods. Our boundaries go from 800 South to 1700 South, and from 700 East to 1300 East, but we also incorporate Liberty Park in which we look after with two other community councils, Liberty Wells Community Council and Central City Neighborhood Council. And I just wanted to give a shout out to one of our friends in the Central City Neighborhood Council who is online. And you probably don't know this, but they just recently designed a new neighborhood watch, community neighborhood watch, in that area. So they are essentially mostly District 4. My colleague Brandy here is letting us know that it's probably a good idea for everybody to check out all the drop downs on the menu or the drop down menu on the Salt Lake City mobile app before you go to try and use it, because it's kind of complex. And if you're trying to do it in the moment or under duress, or if you're upset, it could be a little frustrating. But if you just familiarize yourself with the menu on the apps ahead of time and see all of the different things that you can report, you'll probably it'll be more of a service to you to utilize this. So thank you, Brandy, for letting us know that. The other thing I wanted to talk about is that we are always recruiting board members. We have an incredible board. I want to introduce in the room, we have Jeanette Young, who is our secretary. We have David Jones, who is representing an at-large position, but he does live in the Gilmer Park 11th East neighborhood. So we've been, David's been really helpful on many things, but 1100 East reconstruction has been a big thing happening there. So online we have Jeff Larson, who is our vice chair, and Alan Crittenden, who is another member at large. Marty Chandler is our representative from the Gilmer Park area. So we have many positions, board members who are not here tonight. There's been a lot going on. So thanks everyone for staying home sick and not coming and getting me sick. Thank you, I appreciate it. But I do want to mention that we are happy to take on board members, and especially in our geographical representation, we want to have representatives from different areas. So we are currently looking for an East Emerson representative, and that is 13 South to 17 South, from 11th East to 13th East. And then my neighborhood, which is the West of East neighborhood. And that is between 800 South, 900 South, between 13th East, all the way down to 7th East. So the 9th Business District, who is represented by Amy Albo, is in that area, but we are always looking for members of the community who want to serve on our board to represent those areas. But also we're excited about anybody who just wants to join us. There's a lot of committees, there's a lot of things that want to be done, and we welcome anybody who wants to participate. But I have to say that this group of folks and their dedication to land use in ELPCO has been phenomenal. So thank you, board. I really want to introduce Mustafa tonight. We have a new addition to our board who we feel really lucky to have. And he hails from Ghana. And you might wonder why we have somebody who doesn't live or come from East Liberty Park Community Organization on our board. But he attends school at the University of Utah, and he reached out to us with some really great ideas and great questions. And he has a background at the University of Utah that is especially helpful. And so we are glad to welcome our first intern from the University of Utah, Mustafa. I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and if you want to say something about yourself, that's cool. But definitely let people know what you're studying and why you're here in the state.
Okay. So my name is Mustafa Osman from.
Speak up.
My name is Mustafa Osman from Accra, Ghana. And then I'm currently at the U studying my master's degree in city planning with a specialization in land use, transportation, and accessibility. So I also have a background in community development, because my undergraduate degree was in community development, how to engage community members in sustainable participatory approaches in order to increase urban development, and then also create more public awareness for the community. Because oftentimes, if if you look at the participatory approach, it's more of a top-down approach. So what I was looking at during my undergrad was like how to harness more people in order for us to change the participatory approach from a top-down to a bottom-up approach. So I'm happy to be here because I find the work, especially when I engaged with Christine somewhere last year, I found her work very, very amazing, and then I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
We're glad to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. And again, I just, want to encourage anybody in our neighborhoods that have any idea for us to reach out at any time. It looks like we can go ahead and move on to the ELPCO business that we actually have on our agenda. We have David Jones here, who has been working on ELPCO's grammar request with the Salt Lake City School District, and helping us and all the public to better understand the population and boundary studies and the changes the school districts have made. So I'm just going to turn all the rest of the time over to David for.
Okay, thank you. This is just an update on, well, I guess update on two things. One, our grammar request, and one, an update on the Salt Lake City School District's decision to close schools. And I can't remember the last time I gave an update, or what's happened then, but in early December, they had
It was October.
Was it October? Okay, so they responded to our grammar request and provided us with the information that we had requested, and that information has been provided to the public. And I think it has been very beneficial, especially the information with regards to the data, or in this case, the lack of data that was used by community members from primarily Emerson Elementary School District, Hawthorne School District, or not Hawthorne Elementary Community, probably the Wasatch School Community, some of the documents that we'd requested were not provided, but the documents that were provided I think were helpful, and that grammar request has ended. There's no appeals for that. It was a kind of an arduous process for them to respond, but they eventually did. With regards to the school closure issue, if you remember correctly, we were approached actually by representatives from Emerson Elementary Schools to provide any assistance that we could. And as we got involved in it, we realized that the grammar request would be one way that we could provide information to the public, and the public could use that and digest it for themselves. So we did that. But as time went on, we saw the information ourselves and realized that there was a lack of data to support some of the decisions that were made. We also heard comments like there was a lack of transparency. There were withholding records and emails. We later found out emails that we'd asked for but weren't provided showed up. There was some concern about the way schools were ranked, and there was no explanation as to how the ranking occurred, what the numbers meant on the scored spreadsheet. There was concern that not all of the issues raised by the legislative audit were addressed. And specifically, one of the things was that the legislative audit addressed was that high-performing schools should actually be replicated by the school district. And yet the school district had 3 schools that they were looking at possibly closing that were blue ribbon schools. And that just didn't make sense. Like I said, in December, they had a public meeting where anyone could talk about the proposal. The school district proposed that not all 7 schools that they were looking at closed, but just 4. Those 4 were Jackson Elementary, Riley Elementary, Hawthorne Elementary, and Binion Elementary. And then they readjusted the boundaries within the school district. And this has impact upon East Liberty Park community because some of those schools are within the boundaries of East Liberty Park community, but ultimately, their decision impacts the school-age children in the entire city and their families. On January, at their January meeting, the school board voted to, on a 4-3 vote, voted to close Jackson, Riley, Binion, and Hawthorne Elementary. And you would thought that that might have been the end of it, but earlier this week, and just tonight, earlier this week, questions were raised with regards to conflict of interest with regards to the individual who was kind of the public front-facing person for the board that went to all the meetings, addressed all the questions, was the chair of the Boundaries Operation Committee, with the concern that he had a conflict of interest, if not outright ethical violation, since he was reviewing schools, all the schools, including the school where his wife was a principal, including the school where his stepson attended. And when you know that those schools were not closed, they were left open. And so the parents or the community members of these 4 schools that were closed felt like there was not a level playing field from the get-go. They felt like the sense that there wasn't any transparency. For example, the school district refused to provide the names of the people that were on the Boundary Options Committee that made decisions and recommendations. They always felt like there was this lack of transparency, and now knowing that there was a conflict of interest, it's just heightened that concern. And of course, whenever there's a sense that there's not a level playing field and that some individual has a conflict between his or her public duties and private interests, that should be disclosed and dealt with as opposed to just swept under the rug. And so just today, a letter was sent by these community members to the superintendent and all the board members asking them to revoke their January decision and stay all the school closing process, give it back to the superintendent and provide, and to a new Boundary Options Committee, and to direct the district to have a review that was more transparent, that included participation by the public, that identified how they would score schools and rank them, and also direct the district not to close high-performing schools, but replicate them. So I don't know, that went to that'll be on the news tonight. It's already been on the news on their web pages. I don't have it. They asked that this be put on the agenda again in February. I don't know if it will happen or not. But that's the status of it.
So just to be clear, just want to make sure that people both in Zoom and in the meeting understand ELPCO's participation in this. In that last August, we heard from some community members that reached out to us from Emerson that were very concerned about the numbers, again, the analysis and the data used to put 7 schools on the list. So then again, in October, we also met with some other community members, but this time these community members represented both Emerson, Hawthorne, Benyon, and Wasatch, so that we got a good mix of folks that our constituents tend to go to these schools, parents from these schools. And we did do a little deeper dive into the stats and the numbers. However, one thing that ELPCO has not done is to take a position on the information. Like, we didn't do the grandma request in order to utilize it or manipulate it for our own benefit. Our job was to take all of the information that was made public to us through this grandma request, available to every single member of the public, no matter where you live, east side, west side, other states fairly and equally. We have been having some feedback that one of our links led to the actual Salt Lake School District password protected site, but we have fixed that. So any links that we have shared through social media in our agenda tonight all go to a Google Drive that contains every bit of information that the school district provided us. So everyone across the city has equal access to that data or information for what it's worth to you. But we have been contacted by some people who think that the data says something or doesn't say things. And we've had to stay purposely out of that argument because we haven't had time to look in detail at what, to confirm or deny would not be statistically within our realm of ability to do so. So that said, we would like to invite any questions from the Zoom community or from anybody in the room who might have follow-up for questions for what David just presented tonight.
David, a couple of things. I mean, presumably the audit report's been out for a while. So the piece of it dealing with the audit recommendations of replicating, that's sort of something that's old and probably should have been, I hope, was raised by somebody along the way here. How did they get themselves in the position of having someone in a key position on this who had a wife who was a principal, and how did nobody figure that out until now?
I don't know.
How did they figure it out? I mean, how did it finally come to a head?
I was asked last Saturday if I was aware that Brian Conley, who is the chair of the Boundary Options Committee and the face of the school closures, if I knew that he was married to one of the principals in one of the schools. I said, no. I mean, why would I? I don't know. And but I said, if that's accurate, and he also had a stepson that went to a school, I said there's clearly a conflict of interest that should have been disclosed. And maybe he did. Maybe he did disclose it to his employer.
We don't know.
I don't know.
That's the point I'm trying to stress, is that we are not the knowledge keepers in this area.
But given that information, and then also being aware of the Utah Public Officers and Employees Ethics Act, I knew that there was, that brought that into concern. And from there, I think these concerned parents confirmed a lot. You can go onto elementary school's website and see that she has a principal. There's a marriage certificate out there that shows they're married. There was, I think it's, Alan, I think with a lot of things, there might have been, people know one thing, and I think they just eventually pieced it all together. Or maybe people knew it all the time and they just didn't think it was important. I don't know.
Yeah, I can't imagine the superintendent doing that with her eyes. I mean, that's really, I mean, if you're doing something that is going to be controversial, why would you put someone in a key role who's going to be open to that kind?
Yeah, no, this, superintendent started her position on July 1st, is my understanding. So this has been going on before she got there, and I'm sure she had to figure out things once she did get there. But nonetheless, it's an issue. It's my understanding that a number of the board members were not aware of this, and that and all this goes to, how accurate is the information, and is it without bias that it's provided to you. And so, you want your decisions to be, you want as much information as possible.
Sure.
You make a decision, so you make a good decision. And this is one of the factors. It's not a data factor, but it's an ethical and it's an ethical factor that's.
Yeah,
palpable.
well, and so much of their analysis was opaque and subjective that, you know,
Right.
it sort of does become a data factor, doesn't it?
Becomes a huge fact because,
Yeah.
you know, and how much influence did he have as the chair?
Yeah.
And, you know, we
No,
realized that other people were on the committee that, you know, helped in the process, but,
But we
it's
don't know who
terrible.
those
I mean,
people
no one's
are
gonna look
or
good
how
out of
they-
this.
right.
So, I mean, to kind of wrap this up, just note that there are things we know because we filed an open records request. The school district did provide us eventually with all of the information that is on our link to the information we asked for, so that we could see and look at what we refer to as data. And that includes emails, text, and things like that, that would go into forming that last column on their spreadsheet. Which, you know, I think it's pretty obvious to say that that is probably a lot more subjective than what anybody was hoping for or thought it was.
Yeah.
So, and that's that, you know, moving on from that. This is, you know, we have done what we said we were going to do. Everybody in the public still has a chance to read those emails and look at those texts and all the things that they sent us. If they feel like there's something in them that they need. But most importantly, to be clear, is that we do not have any more information that we provided tonight about this conflict of interest accusation or whatever, and who knew what, when, than David has expressed tonight. But if we do hear more about it, we will be happy to share as much information as we can at our public meetings, like we have been doing since August of last year. In the meantime, you can go to our YouTube channel, ELPCO SLC's YouTube channel, and look at the folks from Emerson speak so intelligently at the August 2023 meeting. You can look at our December meeting, in which we also had a conversation, and then also on our YouTube and our Facebook page, we have a link to the Central City Neighborhood Council meeting that we attended. And actually, we hosted their meeting virtually, and we asked both the superintendent and Brian Conley, as well as Nate Salazar, the board president, some important questions that people were asking us routinely. So you can follow up with those videos on that. Does anybody have anything else to
And
add?
the other thing, Christina, there is a PDF of the letter that was sent to the superintendent and board today on various press websites. I think Channel 13, Channel 2. But do you want to put it on our?
Oh, yeah,
Facebook.
we'll share that on our
It's just a
Facebook
PDF
page,
of the
too.
letter.
Yeah, because I think that we'll make a Facebook post. This is just kind of not something we were even considering talking about tonight, but we will sort of wrap up our understanding of it in a social media post on Facebook. So look for that. All right, so ELPCO meets every fourth Thursday of the month. So we'll be here again. I think that's February 24th next month. So we hope that you will join us. We are looking at getting out into our community and start flyering and getting some information out to people who maybe not know we exist. But if you have any comments for ELPCO on how to reach more of our constituents or residents, businesses, and stuff in the area, please do contact us at ELPCOSLC@gmail.com. Again, thanks to everybody for, one last really important thing that I would have forgotten is our neighborhood boost grant is currently open and will be open for a little while. We're getting some folks that we're answering questions for. So if you have questions in order to fill out the grant application, it's a Google form. Please don't hesitate to call us My phone number is 801-870-3405. Or you can again send us an email at elpcoslc@gmail.com. Thank you all for coming, and I'm going to adjourn this meeting. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.